Welcome to this Masterclass Explainer. Today, we're stepping into the shoes of a strategic management consultant and an executive decision maker. You know, we operate in a world defined by VUCA, volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. But as strategic leaders, we don't have to be paralyzed by VUCA. Instead, we can actually use frameworks to transform that volatility into vision, uncertainty into understanding, complexity into clarity, and ambiguity into agility. And the ultimate tool for achieving that deep understanding of the macro environment? Well, that's PESTEL analysis. So whether you're an MBA student, an executive, or gearing up for your CSCA examination, this explainer is designed to seriously elevate our shared strategic foresight.
Okay, let's take a quick look at our syllabus for today. We're going to cover industry versus macro environment, the PESTEL framework, opportunities versus threats, connecting PESTEL to SWOT, an automotive mini case, and finally, exam traps and rules.
All right, Section 1, Industry versus Macro Environment, differentiating the boundaries of competitive analysis.
So here's a crucial distinction that frequently trips up both seasoned executives and CSCA candidates alike. We have to know exactly where to point our analytical lens. If the pressure or force is coming from your competitors, your suppliers, or your customers, you use Porter's 5 forces. Think of Starbucks, right? They're worrying about a new local coffee shop opening across the street. But if the force stems from society, governments, or massive global technology trends, like, say, climate change affecting global coffee bean yields, then you absolutely must use PESTEL. PESTEL focuses entirely on those macro forces that individual firms cannot directly control, but definitely have to monitor and adapt to.
Moving on to Section 2, the PESTEL framework, the 6 dimensions of the macro environment.
Let's break down the exact categories we need to constantly monitor. P is political. Think of Apple navigating shifting international tariffs. E is economic, like Amazon dealing with inflation and consumer purchasing power. S is social, how health trends and aging populations totally change consumer behavior. T is technological. Just look at how generative AI is currently disrupting accounting and consulting. E is environmental, Tesla capitalizing on the global push to lower carbon emissions. And finally, L is legal, new data privacy and labor laws changing how businesses operate across borders. As strategists, we have to scan all 6 of these horizons simultaneously.
Let's test your strategic reflexes with a classic scenario-based exam question. Imagine we're sitting in a boardroom and the news breaks. Central banks are raising interest rates. Take a second. How would you classify this specific external force? If you said economic factor, you're spot on. We're definitely on the same page here, recognizing the direct drivers of profitability. Interest rates directly impact the cost of borrowing capital and heavily influence consumer spending, making it a textbook macroeconomic variable.
Section 3, Opportunities versus Threats. Context dictates impact.
We really need to tackle a critical nuance right here. PESTEL alone doesn't actually tell you if it changes inherently good or bad. Let's look at how context matters. Imagine artificial intelligence becomes incredibly cheap and accessible. If we run an AI software company, this is a massive tailwind, a huge opportunity for explosive growth. But if we lead a traditional consulting firm that relies heavily on billing junior analyst hours for basic research, well, cheaper AI is a looming existential threat if we're caught unprepared. The trend is exactly the same, but the impact is wildly different. I encourage you to literally burn this executive rule into your memory. Assuming an external trend impacts everyone in the market equally is a fatal flaw in strategic decision-making. As analysts or CSK candidates, we must always look at the external event through the specific lens of the company we're analyzing.
Section 4, Connecting PESTEL to SWOT, moving from external scan to strategic classification.
As strategists, once we identify these macro trends using PESTEL, our job isn't done. The immediate next step is to feed them directly into our SWOT analysis. Rising interest rates? That usually slots straight into the threats quadrant due to higher capital costs. Stricter environmental regulations? Also a threat, requiring costly compliance. But surging demand for renewable energy? That goes right into the opportunities bucket.
This golden rule right here is the missing link that connects environmental scanning directly to organizational strategy. PESTEL is the radar that detects the blips. SWOT is the system that classifies whether that blip is friendly or hostile.
Section 5, Automotive Mini Case. Applying the frameworks in real time.
Let's put our knowledge to the test with a CSK-style scenario focused on an automobile manufacturer navigating today's highly volatile market. Look at how rapidly a complex, chaotic market shifts into focus when we categorize seemingly random developments into clear macro-environmental buckets. Government EV subsidies? Political. Rising interest rates? Economic. A growing cultural desire for green products? Social. Breakthroughs in battery range are technological. And new emission standards sit right at the intersection of legal and environmental. We've just turned chaos into clarity.
Now, from a high-level executive view, let's put on our defensive hats. Look at that list we just generated. Which of those developments require our immediate defensive action? Which trends could seriously hurt our bottom line?
Exactly right. The rising interest rates are a threat because they make auto loans more expensive, likely depressing consumer demand. And stricter environmental regulations are a threat because they force us to dramatically increase our research, development, and compliance costs. These are the specific external threats we've got to actively mitigate in our strategic planning.
Section 6. Exam traps and rules. Thinking like a consultant, not an amateur.
Let's explore the common traps that snag both test takers on the CSCA exam and junior managers in the boardroom. Let's lock these 5 in. We've discussed mixing up Porter's and PESTEL and the context of opportunities. Pay close attention to trap number 3. Inflation is economic, but a change in tax policy is political. And perhaps the absolute most dangerous trap is number 4. The misconception that PESTEL actually chooses your strategy. Remember, PESTEL merely informs the board of what's happening. Management must still use human judgment to decide the actual strategic response.
Furthermore, true strategists don't get distracted by the noise. PESTEL is entirely focused on long-term macro trends, like aging populations or the rise of AI. Temporary events, like a competitor launching a flashy ad campaign or offering a weekend price discount, well, those are tactical issues. They do not belong in a PESTEL analysis. You've got to keep your eyes on the horizon, not just what's right in front of you.
This mindset is fundamentally about strategic foresight. To elevate our planning, we don't just look at the past and ask, what happened this year? Instead, as consultants and strategic executives, we use PESTEL to ask, what forces will disrupt our industry in the next decade? It's about ensuring our foundational assumptions never become obsolete. I'm going to leave you with this final, provocative reflection to really challenge our strategic thinking. Imagine you're the CEO of Qatar Airways. Your dashboard is flashing red over geopolitical tensions, fluctuating global fuel prices, and international aviation laws. Now, teleport into the seat of the CEO of Microsoft. Suddenly, aviation laws don't matter much. Your existential concerns are global AI regulations, data privacy laws, and tech talent shortages. Same global environment, entirely different strategic realities. So how will you use PESTEL to uncover the hidden opportunities and looming threats in your specific industry? Keep scanning the horizon, and I'll see you in the next explainer.